Hello, Valerie.
Hello, Marija.
I am so thrilled that you're taking this time to speak with me on the theme of Clean Slate. And in particular, this thing that you seem to be very passionate about, that it's never too late to create a clean slate and create from there.
Correct.
So before we get into that conversation, just for anyone listening, can you please just say a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you live, what you do, anything that you think audience would like to hear?
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm Valerie Bennis. My nickname is Valley, and I live in New York. I grew up in New York. And for 30 plus years, I've been very involved in holistic healing. So I was doing a lot of things that are now considered normal that then were considered weird, like wheatgrass juice, homeopathy, aromatherapy. But anyway, my focus became aromatherapy, also known as essential oils. And I created a line after studying for 7 years, double certified as an aromatherapist. And I launched a line of products under the brand name Essence of Valley. And I ran my company for nearly 20 years. And a year ago, I sold it.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing. And I've actually, even before we became friends, I was actually a customer, a client of yours, if you will. And I just want to share that because that's such a vivid memory for me. I was living in Florida at the time, and I had a client I absolutely wanted to gift something to. And I thought essential oils would be perfect. She didn't sleep well. There was all these concerns that I had about her, even as my client. And I thought your sleep essential oils will be perfect. Mm-hmm. And I remember purchasing it and then having a concern that I couldn't have it shipped to Florida and then to Chicago. Getting in touch with you and you writing a personal note on my behalf,
right,
such that can be a shift in time. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. Yes. Yeah.
So all that to say is like it's, first of all, that company seemed to have been doing really, really well. What had you sell it?
It's a really, really great question. It's still a really good question. I had lost some of my passion for it, and I had experienced some losses in my life, and I was just dealing with my own depression, if you will, and it was hard to feel really motivated. And just having run the company for so long, it sounds so sad, but I had fallen out of love with my own creation. I had fallen out of love with my own creation.
Yeah, and how long has the company been around?
Well, I launched in the year 2000.
Wow.
And, that was before aromatherapy was popular. It was still considered very fringe. And one of the goals of my product line was the therapeutic use of essential oils so that people really understood how effective these were, that it wasn't just about a nice smell or a weird smell, that it went beyond aromatherapy. I don't even like the term aromatherapy. I think of therapy with plant essences. That's really what it is.
And how did you actually get to that idea to sell it or to start something new? Were you trying to expand first? How did that come about?
Oh, you mean when I launched Essence of Valley?
No, I mean, you can share that first. Yeah. But I mean, also like, how did you get to the idea? Okay, I have to sell it. Like it was,
It was again that I didn't have the passion for it anymore. I had fallen out of love with my company, and I felt that I wanted to have some more free time. I just wanted to retire. I'm going to be 68 January 12th, and a lot of people retire at that age, and I felt like I wanted to retire and dip and dabble in things and do volunteer work and just have freedom. That was a part of it too.
Yeah.
The other thing is my own mortality. I wanted to be able to pass the torch to someone younger who could keep it going for the next, 30 or 40 years. So that was a part of it too.
Oh, wow. That's, yeah, I admire actually that selflessness to obviously have created a company from a great idea, great intention, and then facing that we're not forever,
Yeah.
and then deciding to actually give it away such that it can grow and not have it be last minute, because had you waited and not given it away, who knows what would happen.
Yes, that's such a good point. And one of the things I learned in the running of my own company is to always be like a step ahead, so that when I say got a big order, I was prepared for it, and this was a similar thing that, in the event of my getting sick or, something happening, that it was a good time to do it. And it was a synchronistic opportunity that then came along.
And what do you mean by synchronistic opportunity? Somebody
Well,
was actually looking for buying,
somebody
or?
wasn't actively looking, but it was on someone's wish list that they have an aromatherapy company. And it was this woman's mother-in-law who ended up literally buying the company for her. And we're connected. I know her mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law knows my brother. And it was like my brother mentioning to her that I was selling my company. I wanted to sell my company, and she was like, "Wow, I want to buy a company for my daughter-in-law." It was like a magical thing. And it brings me back to, I mean, I was in the corporate world for a lot of my adult life, and I was studying aromatherapy while I was in the corporate world, and then I left to launch the company. And there was also like a lot of synchronicity. I needed someone to do my booth for the trade show, and my brother had a company that did just that. And it was like everything that I needed was there. It was very magical.
Yeah, I love that you shared that, because it is, my belief that when something is meant to be, when something is organically growing and expanding, that the next step is always clear. There's no pushing and forcing. The next step always shows up.
Yes, it was that whole thing of being in the zone. I
Mm-hmm.
just felt, and it doesn't mean that you don't have to work. I had to work at it, but it felt very much in that zone where the right people showed up. Not always, but most of the time. And, there are like a million wonderful stories that I could share. And there are also, very challenging things that happened, or, funny things that happened. And, it's interesting to just kind of jog my memory about it.
Yeah, it sounds like all 88 keys of the piano, right? Like all the emotions. Because, I mean, what you're sharing is like you passed on the torch. And as we discussed in private, even before this recording that we are making, while on one hand, this is an opportunity both for you to embark on something new and create the rest of your life differently, and opportunity for this person to have her passion realized, it's also a sense of loss. I mean, this is, I mean, I don't want to compare it with giving away a child, but it's kind of like when you let the child marry off, and then you no
Yes.
longer, you kind of gain, but you also lose.
Yes.
What?
Well, look, when I finally did pass the torch, I freaked out. I
Mm.
did. I
Oh.
was, oh my God, what did I do? This is a terrible mistake. My twin brother, who's an entrepreneur and has been since he was 23, is my mentor. And I went to him. I said, "Oh, you have to get it back. I made a mistake." And I felt ungrounded. I felt lost. I felt upset with myself. It was not easy because I didn't realize how much of my identity had been attached to that I owned Essence of Valley, my name and the essence of me, and it was gone. I couldn't make any decisions anymore. It was a very, very rough patch.
Yeah, that is a shaking of identity. And I mean, the truth is it's the identity that you created. So there's a creator who created the identity, right? But giving up identity shook that your own creation.
Yes.
So how did you I mean, just I would love for you to share more about how you moved through that time, because I notice even when people declutter their closets, if it's a piece of expensive clothing or somebody dear to you somebody that is dear to you gave it to you, we have this attachment to that it means something, or that giving it away means something. So can you share a little bit about how you actually healed that sense of loss?
Part of it, there were a few things, Marija. One was I sold it at the end of October. And then when the pandemic hit, several months later, because I was, again, for several months, I was shaky. Part of what was grounding was we were still shipping orders out of New York, even though the new owner lives in Texas. I still had my assistant. I still had my office. That was very helpful. And I was assisting with the transition. And I was mentoring and still mentor Jessica, the new owner. So that helped me settle into a new role of mentoring someone else to run my company. And realizing that I was still very much a part of the company, it was really just a different role. So I was kind of working it out in my own mind. And, even she hired a PR firm, and there were opportunities where they wanted the founder's story. And also what began to happen is I began to re-experience my company through her eyes, because she's in love with my company. She's in love with what I created. So some of that was going on. But then when the pandemic hit, I started doing something that I hadn't done in a long time. I started tinkering and creating new blends. And, that I was doing it at home for the most part. I created some hand sanitizers, which then I decided the market is now so oversaturated with them. I didn't want to do that. But I decided to focus on perfumes because I had been mostly focused on creating therapeutic blends. But I hadn't perfected the craft of creating perfumes with essential oils. So that's what I ordered oils that I'd never worked with before. I came up with unusual formulas, and then I shipped them to my manufacturer to get samples to see how they translated into perfume. So that then gave me, it felt like, oh, I can mentor Jessica. I can help my assistant, Linda. When the pandemic hit, I was actually going to the office to pack orders because I didn't want my assistant to have to do it. So it was reestablishing a sense of purpose and also a creative project. I think that's what really helped me settle down.
That's really interesting. I mean, what I'm left with out of you sharing the story is that here you were a creatrix of it, a founder, right? Probably a better word is a founder. And then you became a businesswoman that had to be one step ahead. And then at some point you fell out of love with probably even that business aspect of it when you think about it, because when you switched into the role, when you gave it up and switched into the role of mentor and supporter, really, of the new person, new business head, CEO, if you will, director,
Yes.
you were able to create some space and really reinvent yourself. But it sounds, what I'm left with is that that whole process, while it had some loss and discomfort in it, was pretty gentle as well. You didn't just give it away and had to make it work. There was no force in it. That's what I really hear. Is that
Yes.
true?
Well, and the other thing is that it was what you could call a soft landing.
Mm.
It wasn't like I sold it and then I couldn't have anything to do with it, or I just closed it down. And I think that made it easier, that it was a soft landing. Um, but nonetheless, it was again a rough, it's that ungrounded, where do I belong in the world feeling. It's very uncomfortable. At least it was very uncomfortable for
Mm-hmm.
me until I settled down and I got my footing and I felt more empowered and I felt like I could be creative again. And um, so but it's been a little over a year now. At the end of October, it was a year.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that story. And I wanted to ask you this because, I truly believe that we always have to create a clean slate to create something new. When I even think something as simple as painting, if the canvas is filled with something, sure, you can paint over it, but you don't have this sense that anything can be on the canvas. You're working with what's already there. Um, I also believe that that's really hard to do when people are in survival. So can you say more about, like, how did you feel it's a ripe moment to make this transition? Like, because it doesn't sound like it was just like, I have to, there was no edge. Again, I'm really going back to that, I'm a step ahead, where you're thinking things through and just really kind of allowing it to arise rather than panic survival, because I find that very difficult.
Yeah, it was. This all started really after my mother died,
Mm.
and I became more aware of my own mortality. And I was thinking about this, well, about my company. It was years that I was really thinking about it. And I was in a mode of just maintaining things. Um, and originally my idea was just to shut it down. And then this opportunity came along. So it was sort of in the background. And I even remember a business advisor once saying you should always have an exit plan.
Mm.
A lot of entrepreneurs, I know some of them personally, they love nothing more than to start a company, build it up, sell it, and then go on to something new. And
Yeah.
I am so in awe of them because I went through it only once and it was a soft landing. I don't want to really go through it again.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Like, I mean, I love, this is an example of something that is a big change. As you said, your whole identity was wired around it, and like, you were known for it, and there was a good experience about it. It was a company that did pretty well, that obviously people were left with great customer service
Yes.
and all of that. So I find that hard. Um, do you see this, I know you're related to the principle of clean slate, like having a clean slate to
Yes.
create. Can you say more about just where else do you see it? And do you think that was actually helpful for you to embark on this new creation, which is this invention again? After years of holding a company, you invented something new.
Correct. And that's been interesting to, again, talking about a clean slate, because with Essence of Valley, you know, it had a certain look, certain design. And every time I added a new product, we would follow that design. And it's very expensive if you revamp the packaging. So I tweaked it here and there, but I never really revamped it. So one of the things, because I now have one perfume that I'm getting ready to launch under a different name and a different look. So it was, again, an opportunity to, wow, I can pick whatever fonts I want. I can, you know, make this very feminine looking. I can target women of a certain age with my product line. You know, I came up with a name that I just love. So it was, I didn't have to follow a certain look anymore. It could be whatever I wanted. And so that felt, you know, it was mixed because it was also, I found that I'm very indecisive now. Well, should it be this or should it be that? Or, you know, going back and forth. Whereas before it was easy because that had already been done. So, you know, that struck me. Again, once we have it set, it'll be easier for the next perfume. So I noticed that. It was, again, my also doubting. I would say, well, why am I doing this? You know, I did this. Why am I doing this? And what I've come up with is I'm now doing it for fun. I'm doing it for fun. I'm doing it to contribute natural perfumes to the world. I'm doing it for my own creative expression. And I can just have fun with it. I'm not going to have the same pressure that I had 20 years ago. It's like a retirement gig. It's something for fun, something for expression and creativity. So, yeah, it's different than 20 or so years ago.
Beautiful. And can you tell whatever it's okay to give away, like whether it's a name or who is it for? Like what did you actually end up creating in perfume? Who is it for? What was actually the most fun for you?
So the name was really, you know, I went through a couple of different names, and then one day it just came up. It was that sort of, what's the right word? Just boom, there it was. And when we make perfumes, we work with a top, middle, and a base note. So, and I kept thinking about that, like notes, like they're like musical notes, but they're not musical notes. They're fragrant notes, fragrant notes. And that's the name of the company, Fragrant Notes, the name of the brand. And luckily that domain was available. And interestingly enough, 2 days after I reserved it, I got an email from someone who wanted to buy it. Which again felt like that synchronicity starting all over again.
Yeah.
And the fragrance is called, the one that worked, it's very tricky when you make perfumes with essential oils. They can get cloudy in alcohol, or they might not translate well in alcohol. So out of the four, one worked. And it's called Earth Embrace. And the idea is to be embraced by the earth. It's very grounding, and it's using essential oil. This is what I love about essential oils. It's a perfume, but we don't often think of perfume as therapeutic. So, but it is. It's a grounding. You feel comforted, but it's also, in my opinion, a beautiful scent. And people today, with all of the uncertainty, there's a lot of loneliness, a lot of isolation. So it's the sense of being comforted, stabilized, because I think a lot of people were destabilized with the pandemic. And, you know, that was something that I really became familiar with over the last 5 or so years, the feeling of being destabilized. And loss often does that. My target market is women 40 up until, I don't know, 100. And I feel that that target demographic, it's very important because the message out there, which is a screwed up message, is somehow after 40, that's it.
Yeah.
In terms of our beauty, our sensuality, our whole sense of ourselves. And I don't buy into that. And I don't want women to buy into it. So, and I feel we've made some shifts, but we still have a way to go. When we see more older models, for example, you know, which is happening to some degree, or the idea that we're supposed to look a certain way, you know, be a certain weight. So part of the whole message is about just being happy with who we are and where we are, and self-love, and feeling empowered in our lives. You know, I want to create almost like a community through the perfume. And of course, I want to create other perfumes that I want to do one that's very healing to the heart. I want to do one that is more sensual, and I want to do one that is just uplifting to people's moods. So those will be the other three.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. I love that, you know, you being inspired, you creating a space for yourself to create something new is such a great message, and it translates. It really translates. It's a reinvention of what it means to be a woman 40 and up.
Yes.
In this world. Such a beautiful message. And what I also see in what you're sharing is that when you create something that is so organic, that is created from literally nothing, because you've given away your company, you were supporting them, but you gave it away, you were able to create something that had purpose right now, honoring who you are right now, you being a woman, you facing your own mortality, you being in a world that feels uncertain, and then addressing that by something that has like earth and ground element in it, but then also something that is for heart, for sensuality, and then what sounds like mind, but you say moods. I immediately actually heard mind as you said, and then you said, but it is like uplifting, right? Like it's that, it's the chakra from.
Yes. And they are, you know, like the one that the earth embrace is very lower chakra focused. And so, you know, even the color, like I recently was going back and forth about the color, because the color communicates something too. So again, it's that whole thing of creating something from nothing, which I had done with Essence of Valley, and now with these perfumes, it's a way to do it again.
That's a beautiful message, and really a message of clean slate. Like you know, created this also a group of people just to support each other, to clean slate mental, emotional, physical space around us, so that the impulse of creation can come through. And you really are an example of that. When you do clear, that something does arise.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing, first of all, I love that you call it clean slate. I just love that. I think it's perfect. And yes, the benefit of cleaning the slate, so to speak, is that there may be a loss giving away things that you love, selling a company, moving, leaving a relationship. They're losses, but then there's the opportunity that the clean slate presents, like, wow, I have a clean slate. You mentioned a clean canvas. I can create anything.
Yeah, I love that. It's really beautiful. And I've been doing yoga since the year 2000 or even right before. And I always remember, if you're holding something, you can't receive. So really, it's just letting go, surrendering, so that so the hand is free to receive, to take.
Yeah, and that I think we're often, like, I find if I'm fighting what is, there's nothing that can come. But when I just, okay, this is what is, I sold my company, I can't get it back. I'm going to be okay with it. And then new things, as you said, new things are allowed to come in because it's open and clean and clear.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful, I'm just framing what you just said, the acknowledging what is, you know, as a facilitator of constellations, that's always the first step. Acknowledge what is, because if you're resisting it, that you're giving it power. So really surrender is the theme as well. I know I call it clean slate, but there's a surrender and letting go and trust. And from your stories also being really brave to take on the next step.
Thank you. And I want to say something about that, because what I've also learned about myself is there's the brave part of me and there's the petrified, scared part of me that just wants to run and hide under the covers. And I think what's important for everybody to know is that I think we all feel that way. You know, we feel brave. We can be brave and terrified at the same time. And, you know, it can be a little bit of a dance between the two. But thank you. I appreciate that. I realized that I underestimated the courage that it took to sell my company.
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear the brave, and also I appreciate your vulnerability to not give out the false impression that it's easy. I think at least in the past 10 years, that is my experience. I know I can't vouch for others, but it's been my experience that you look at social media and information out there. There's success stories, and sure, they'll share one breakdown, but it's sounds like, well, one breakdown turning point and everything is happy ever after. And I think that's not how life is. And part of the idea of clean slate, even as a principle, really, it's not something I'm necessarily passionate about. I just find it as an integral part of being a creator in life is, you know, for me, even when I'm not in a good mood, rather than wasting time or having a negative self-talk, I would get up and go clean something or look at the drawer and clear it up, organize it. And by the time I do that, there's this experience of victory that I have, like I conquered something small, and it's a small victory, and then another small victory, and then another small victory. And it reminds me of the Buddhist principle, chop wood, carry water. Like it's just a simple principle. But oh my God, does it allow us to be present and then to allow something to arise? And sometimes what arises is the experience of loss and grief, and giving space to that as well.
Yes, and I also feel, I was talking to someone about this the other day, that our vulnerability, there was a quote recently about this, our vulnerability is our biggest strength, and it makes us human, and it makes us able to relate to other people and to have compassion for other people. And this whole idea that, you know, stiff upper lip and soldier on, that is not a sign of strength. I think that some of the strongest people are the people that are the most feeling, the people that will let themselves cry, that will just allow themselves to feel. Because what I see in our culture is a lot of people doing things so that they don't feel, working too much, drinking too much, shopping too much, you know, hopping from relationship to relationship. And it's so sad, because I really see that part of what makes us beautiful and human is the capacity to feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally hear you and agree with what you said. And I also do think that when you are creating something new and then letting go of what you had, for a moment at least, you're dealing with nothing. So you go from, you are known as this, and then right now for a moment you may have felt like nobody, like there's no sense of self. And that's a scary moment. And I think the pitfall can also be to feel it too quickly without feeling, and being able to feel that and express the emotion, not withhold it or tighten up around it, allows us to flow into the next moment, alchemize into the next moment. And I really hear such like stages of creation with what you're sharing, and every step of the way, and vulnerability and bravery and creation, and then also aspect of responsibility and being somebody who, when you were doing your business, and even as a business owner, like you knew the game was to be ahead and to attend to the orders and whatever was expected of you. So there was also integrity in how you attended to each role that you played in this particular journey.
Yes, thank you. There was something else I wanted to mention about what you said, was how I felt that emptiness that I felt, and the longing and loneliness of it after I had sold it. You know, it was like I felt, oh my God, you know, this sense of, it was a sense of terror in a way. And, you know, and as you said, yes, there was the need, like I have to create something new, but I did it where I was tinkering, I was playing. That's how I did it. And that's the way I want to do it going forward, you know, with this new, in this new stage, where I have that luxury just being where I am in my life and the age that I am.
Beautiful. It's really beautiful. Thank you. I mean, thank you so much for sharing everything. And I love the new Fragrant Notes and Earth Embrace, and then the other 3 perfumes that are coming through soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being a demonstration of actually what it takes to create.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing. As I mentioned before, I just love the concept of Clean Slate. And, you know, it's an inspirational concept for everybody, for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so beautiful. Such a great validation. So appreciated. And again, I think what you brought today is also, it's never too late. Like, it's really
Correct.
never too late. Like, it just takes being courageous, looking at what needs to be surrendered to, let go of, and grappling with that nothing until something new arises.
Correct. That beautifully said.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Marija.
Thank you.
Okay.